Hello, everyone. I'm Billy.
And I'm Kamran. Welcome to the Horse Frog Podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors and the creators of the Malazan Brotherhood.
Today, we will be discussing Book 4, Chapter 17 of Deadhouse Gates, a novel in the Malazan Books of the Fallen. This is part 1 of our coverage of this chapter. Maybe.
Maybe.
I said hopefully. I should have said it's like...
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it is most definitely not intended to be a replacement to reading the books. Both Billy and I know this to be the best fantasy story ever written and want to share our love of the series with you. I made it through that entire sentence, Billy, without messing up.
I was going to try and go something really ridiculous today, too, but I chickened out at the last minute. I'm saving it.
Okay.
I'm saving it. We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoiler for those that have not read the books. We'll try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book. But that ship's already sailed. I dropped a minor spoiler earlier. Not big, just kind of minor. So again, minorly sorry. But I believe our days without incident are now climbing, sir. Are they not?
I think we're at 2 episodes for you and 1 episode for me.
Righteous.
It should be the lowest common denominator, probably. There has been 1 episode without incident so far. Or do you want to keep them separate?
I have no idea. To be discussed at next board meeting.
Okay. Notes taken. A quick warning. Today's episode contains descriptions of extreme violence. Listener discretion is advised.
And our show is listener supported. And if you'd like to support us, we would really appreciate that. I mean, like, deeply, really. So you can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we're posting ad-free episodes on Patreon weekly.
Also, we'd really like to hear from you. Send any feedback or comments to contact at horsefrogproductions.com. All right, Chapter 17, Part 1. The chapter begins on the Ragstopper with Kalam. The captain had begun swaying, though not in time with the heaving ship. He poured wine all over the table as well as into the 4 goblets arrayed before him. He said, "Ordering thick-skulled sailors this way and that makes for a considerable thirst. I expect the food will be along shortly." Pormqual's treasurer raised painted eyebrows and said, "But, Captain, we have already eaten." The captain said, "Have we? That explains the mess, then, though the mess still has some explaining to do, because it must have been awful. You there," he said to Kalam. "You're as solid as any fen bear. Was that palatable? Never mind. What would you know anyway? I hear 7 cities natives grow fruit just so they can eat the larva in them. Gobble the worm and toss the apple, eh? If you want to know how you folks see the world, it's all there in that one custom. Now that we're all chums, what were we talking about?" Is that some type of insult thrown to Kalam, or?
I'm not sure how to take that. The captain, for the first part here, says some things that seem okay. Mm-hmm. He says some things that are like, I'm not sure. Are you okay, man? I don't know if this is something special or what.
Yeah, so the statement, "eat the worm and toss away the apple," what does that mean to you? Because most people think the apple is valuable, and if there's a worm in it, you don't want to eat that part, right?
Yeah. Don't want to eat that. You usually don't want to even eat the apple at that point. You're like, you've seen that worm in there. Maybe it's a way that they are just, instead of they just cut right to the core of it. They get right to the meat of it, so to speak.
This is one of those things where I'm not particularly good at interpreting this type of message.
I know it, dude. Yeah. Nor I. It's like, so I like when you throw it at me, because sometimes I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you and I have discussed this openly, and this is not an insult to you or I. I read books so much at face value. I don't really try and read anything into it unless it's just super obvious, and it has to be super obvious for me to see it. I always dread it in high school. Unfortunately, it didn't happen to me very much, if at all, because I stayed out of AP classes. But people, what did the candlestick on the mantle in 3rd chapter, part 1, mean? And that, it's like, I'm like, I got no idea. Mm-hmm. Is there some significance to that? It's like, I read nothing into things, so I don't know.
English was the class I hated the most. For as much as I love reading,
yes,
I despise English.
Yes.
That was one part of it. Just always seems so pretentious to me. I read books to get inspired.
Yeah.
The heroic response to great threats always gets me going.
Yeah.
That's one aspect of it. I do, as I age, look for things that I can use to help me reflect on the world in a way.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, especially some of the commentary I've been giving as we were reading through the Malazan books this time. How I see the world today and how some of the stuff that's happening here applies to that. That's the kind of stuff I look for. as well now. I don't think that really qualifies as reading into it necessarily.
Strangely enough, all I focus on is on terms and names. I focus on, when I first time we talked about all the words we learned, it's always his stuff and his use of archaic English in certain cases that kind of made me have to learn certain words. Like, what? I think I know what that means, but I really have to double check. But other than that, like I say, I really do take things so at face value, especially with this kind of read. With a fantasy read, it's like it's so not real world,
Mm-hmm.
To begin with. You're like, it's like, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things that concerns me about reading the Forge of Darkness and the Fall of Light, that Carcanis trilogy. Eventually, when the third one comes out, I've heard that he goes more into that side of things. The prose is different and it's more poetic. So I'm concerned about how much I'm going to enjoy those, because the stuff that I enjoy the most about this is not necessarily those things. I do like the way he writes some of the language in this, though. Like we use the example, yes. It was ever thus, that kind of stuff.
Yes. His poetic stuff here at the beginning, which I usually don't like any, but he has some stuff that has some kind of longer pieces that I actually enjoy of his, but I don't look forward to that. I, like you, appreciate the blood and bone, shall we say, of this world and the military. And I don't know anything about the Carcanis trilogy, but I did read book 1 of Witness trilogy, and I guarantee you'll like that. I mean, it's exactly what you want right there. I mean, it's like this, but yes, more. It's just
this, but more. Okay.
This, but more, better. I don't know if it's more better. It's just, it's great. So far, it's great. It's not finished yet, so I'm kicking myself for having started, but I couldn't wait.
That was a big oof on your part. Now you got to wait like 6 years.
Yeah, right. Yes, I do have to wait 6 years.
All right. Sulk Elan reached out and collected his goblet, sniffing cautiously before taking a swallow. He said, "The dear treasurer was surprising us with a complaint, Captain." The captain leaned over the table and stared at the treasurer. He said, "Was he now? A complaint? Aboard my ship? You bring those to me, sir." The treasurer sneered and said, "I just have." The captain said, "And deal with it I shall, as a captain must. Now, what else should we talk about?" Sulk Elan met Kalam's eye and winked. He said, "What if we were to touch on the small matter of those 2 privateers presently pursuing us?" The captain said, "They're not pursuing. They're keeping pace, sir, and that is entirely different, as you must surely grasp." Sulk Elan said, "Well, I admit I see the distinction less clearly than you do, Captain." The captain said, "How unfortunate." The treasurer rasped, "You might endeavor to enlighten us." The captain asked, "What did you say? Light endeavor us? Extraordinary man." He settled back in his seat, a contented expression on his face.
Dude, I'm sorry, that's a magnificent word. Light endeavor us, man. It's like, that's like is that honorific? That's not a swear word. That sounds like it's like praiseworthy. Splendiferous, sir. Light endeavor us, man. It's like magnificent, my good man. That's just light endeavors. I love it.
It's something you would see in an English hall. They're making toasts or something, right?
Absolutely. Oh, sorry. That's fantastic.
Kalam guessed, "They want a stronger wind." The captain said, quickening, "They want to dance around us, aye. The ale-pissing cowards. Toe-to-toe, that's how I'd like it. But no, they'd rather duck and dodge. That's why we'll take them unawares. Come the dawn. Attack! Hard about! Marines prepared aboard enemy vessel. I won't truck complaints aboard Ragstopper. Not a one, damn it. The next bleat I hear, and the bleater loses a finger. Bleats again, loses another one. And so on. Each one nailed to the deck. Tap, tap." That's one way to maintain discipline.
You wouldn't have very many guitar or banjo pickers in your group if they broke discipline. That was
not at all.
But no, sorry, I take that personal because I am a picker. I'm a bass player, so yes, I treasure my fingers. He seems to be kind of fine though. They're giving orders almost. He sounds a little wild, but at the same time, those are not bad orders, I guess, if he knows what he's doing.
Right. I guess the primary concern is his level of drunkenness, and he's spouting this stuff off. You could think that perhaps he's not of the best mind to be making these types of decisions.
And also, I'm going to say something else here. This clicked with me. I think I mentioned it later on, but it's also relevant here is the fact that remember when he met with Kalam at the bowl-shaped restaurant dive, throat slit and whatever place where all the, where you wouldn't be surprised to see a body laying in the heap at the bottom there. He was kind of similar, wasn't he? I wasn't sure if that was drunkenness or just this, or if or if this is just him, just normal. I mean, if you've watched much Blackadder in the second season, there was this Captain Rum.
No.
He's kind of like this, where he says things like, he says, you get up and he says, oh, he goes, you have the bloody cheek of something, is what Blackadder says. He goes, oh, you have a woman's cheek, my lord. I bet that cheek has never tasted the lash of a cat and been salted, but used for somebody's cut purse or something like this. You're like, dude, no. He goes, and then he says something else. He goes, I bet you've never had your legs swept out from under you and washed out to sea. He goes, neither have you. And he says, rubbish, and he sweeps the table away, and the guy's got no legs. He's crazy. He's just out of his mind. It's kind of like that, where some things he says are like, okay, you know what? That sounds right. It's almost right. Not sure if it's right. Yeah. It sounds right, though. That may be what it is. Maybe this just sounds right.
I do pick up a little bit of all of his speech in this chapter being cryptic in nature. You never know what exactly is being said.
Mm-hmm.
He does have that way about him.
Yeah. I guess the question is this deliberate, or is it himself? Or is it deliberately him or deliberate against him?
Oh, almost Krupp-like?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
Kalam closed his eyes. They had sailed 4 days now without an escort, the trade winds pushing them along at a steady 6 knots, but the 2 pirate galleys could still sail circles around Ragstopper. Kalam thought, and the madman wants to attack. The treasurer whispered, did you say attack? I forbid it.
That should have probably been the clue that it's probably a bad idea if Kalam thinks, and the madman wants to attack. Okay, there we go. I guess he's a little out of it there. Sorry. Thanks, Kalam.
The captain blinked owlishly at the man. He said, why, sir, I looked into my tin mirror, did I not? It's lost its polish. On my word, so it has. Between yesterday and today, I plan to take advantage of that. I was confused about this lost its polish thing.
Yeah.
It kind of clears it up a little bit later. It's weather related. Do you anticipate that it has something to do with the humidity levels and it's fogging up or something? And so he can tell by how shiny the mirror is whether or not weather is coming?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if this is, like you said, out of prattling kind of craziness.
He does mention the mirror again later, after the storm hits.
Oh.
When we get there, we can review
it. Okay, copy that.
Since the voyage began, Kalam had managed to stay in his cabin for the most part, electing to emerge on deck only at the quietest hour, late in the last watch before dawn. Eating with the crew in the galley had also reduced the number of encounters with either Sulk Elan or the treasurer. This night, however, the captain had insisted on his joining them at dinner. The appearance of the pirates at midday had made Kalam curious about how the captain would deal with the threat, so he had agreed. It was clear that Sulk Elan and the treasurer had established a truce of sorts, as things never went beyond the occasional sardonic swipe. But it was the captain who was the true mystery aboard the Ragstopper. Kalam had heard enough talk in the galley and between the first and second mates to gauge that the man was viewed with both respect and some kind of twisted affection. He thought, in the manner that you'd view a touchy dog, pat once and the tail wags, pat twice and lose a hand. He shifted roles with random alacrity, dismissive of propriety. He revealed a sense of humor that yanked taut comprehension. Too long in his company, especially when wine was the drink of choice, and Kalam's head ached with the effort of following the captain's wending ways. What was worse, Kalam sensed a thread of cool purpose within the scattered weave, as if the captain spoke 2 languages at once, one robust and divergent, the other silken with secrets. He thought, I'd swear the bastard's trying to tell me something vital. He'd heard of a certain sorcery from one of the less common warrens that could lay a glamour upon a person's mind, a kind of mental block that the victim, in absolute tortured awareness, could circle round but never manage to penetrate. He thought, now I'm venturing into the absurd. Paranoia's the assassin's bedmate, and no rest comes in that clamoring serpent's nest. Would that I could speak with Quick Ben now. And that warren would be Makra, the one that messes with people's heads?
Yes. That's a nasty one, especially when you have the right wielder doing things to them, because there's That's a nasty thought, being aware of and not being able to say other. That's one of the things I like about this world so much. I'm not as well read in the high fantasy world as other folks, granted, but usually things are kind of cut and dry in those worlds. Someone almost inevitably becomes mind controlled in some book or another. I mean, look at Frodo, for goodness sake. Now, Frodo is the predecessor of all this. But you know what I'm saying? Because he's one of the first ones we see it happen to, really. I mean, Tolkien is the grandfather of this stuff. It's just so different in this world where somebody could be under some kind of curse or something, or just somebody messing with them like this and not be able to say, and no one else would be aware of.
With Makra, it almost feels like someone has to actively be engaged in the disruption.
That's my impression too. Yes, like they're throwing. Because remember, what was it?
Khallet?
No, not Khallet too. But who was the guy that was with the boat repair warrant guy? Culp. He was doing that kind of stuff too, remember? Because he's a Makra guy. He was a Makra.
No, he was Shadow.
Oh, he was Shadow. Okay, I'm sorry.
Mianus, yeah.
Mianus.
He was throwing voices around, noises around to make people confused about where they were.
That was very Makra-esque. I guess in Makra, you don't throw the voices. You make people think they're hearing the voices.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. You could make someone a prison in their own mind.
That's nasty. That is so nasty. That's scary. That's a horrifying one. That's real Sandman-esque too, because I've seen Sandman does that stuff. He traps somebody in a dream as punishment. It's called Ever Waking or something like that, where they keep on that verge of waking up. When they wake up, it's like the nightmare progresses to get deeper and deeper.
Oh, so they're in a nightmare and trapped in their mind?
Yes. Yeah, that's a horrifying thought, dude.
That was kind of the premise of Vanilla Sky, wasn't it?
I can't remember. I didn't see Vanilla Sky.
Okay.
I didn't see Vanilla Sky. I've caught the last 20 minutes of Vanilla Sky with my late missus.
Okay. Well, then you probably got spoiled what was going on.
Right. Yeah, I remember the reveal. So it's like the Sixth Sense reveal then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Is it like Jacob's Ladder? Did you ever see Jacob's Ladder?
No.
Oh, okay, gracious. You need to see Jacob's Ladder. It is a horror movie of sorts. It's the director of Fatal Attraction, as a matter of fact. And it's got some really odd, really flipping back and forth. Like this guy, he's an ex-Vietnam vet, sees things, but then in one world, I mean, it's like in one reality that this is one thing is happening, and then there's this other reality where this other thing is happening. It's like, is it time slipping? What is it? It does kind of make itself a little clearer. And then it does have a very definitive ending that's spoiler-ish, but it doesn't spoil rewatching. So that's where that's different, but it has that kind of vibe. You need to see that. You might enjoy that. It's creepy. Got some really great imagery.
All right. Kalam heard the end of a question from the captain. Sleep with your eyes open, man? Kalam started and frowned at the captain. Salkiland said, the master of this fine sailing ship was saying that it's been a strange passing of days since we reached open water. It was an interrogative seeking your opinion, Kalam. Kalam growled, it's been 4 days since we left Aran Bay. The captain asked, has it now? Are you certain? Kalam asked, what do you mean? The captain said, someone keeps knocking over the hisser, you see. Kalam asked, the what? Then he thought, oh, the hissing of sand. I'd swear he's making up words as he goes along. This is an hourglass, right?
Yes.
Kalam said, are you suggesting you have but one hourglass on Ragstopper? Elan said, official time is so kept by a single glass. The captain added, well, none of the others on board agree. 4 days or 14? The treasurer suspiciously demanded, is this some kind of philosophic debate? The captain belched and said, hardly. We left harbor with the first night of a quarter moon. Kalam tried to think back to the previous night. He'd stood on the forecastle beneath a brilliantly clear sky. Had the moon already set? No, it rode the horizon, directly beneath the tip of the constellation known as the Dagger. End of a 3/4 moon. But that's impossible. The captain continued, 10 weevils a handful, as good as a hisser engaging passage. You'd have 10 in close on a fortnight, unless the flour was foul from the start. Only the cook swears otherwise. That's an interesting way to determine how long you've been at sea. Measure the number of bugs infesting your food.
Interesting. I'm not sure if that's how I'd classify it, but disgustingly interesting. Oh, good gracious.
You're right.
I think really good catch from the captain. realizing that's not, we've been out here for, he's not asking a question at this point. He's making a statement as far as I understand it. We've been here 2 weeks. We've been out 2 weeks.
He's trying to get the perception of what everybody else is thinking, right?
Yeah.
Elan smiled and said, just as he'd swear he'd cooked us dinner here tonight, though our bellies groan that what we've just eaten was anything but food. In any case, thank you for dispelling the confusion. The captain said, well, sir, you've a point there, sharp enough to prick skin, though mine's thicker than most, and I ain't anything if not stubborn. Elan said, for which I cannot help but admire you, Captain.
You know who he reminds me of here? I'm so sorry, you're going to love this. It's the guy with Tourette's in Boondock Saints that mixes the metaphors. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's like people that live in glass houses shouldn't sink ships or something like that. It's like he's saying things like that, just like, wait a minute, I recognize that, and I recognize that, but these don't belong together. These don't belong together. That's how this guy's speaking. Also, bring you a horrific update if you have not heard this. At least I think it's horrific, because it comes from the film school of, can't we just let something die, for goodness sake? Boondock Saints 3 has been slated.
Oh, I don't know how to feel about that.
I don't either. It's like, can't we just let something die, man? Scream's still going.
Yeah, I mean, they did pretty bad with The Matrix.
Yes. Right? Oh, my good, great. You watched that, right?
No, I read enough about it to know I didn't want to watch it.
Yeah, I agree. You don't want to watch it. I was trying. I'm so sorry. I was trying to think of a way to say, yeah, you got to check it out. It's got some interesting visual stuff. Yeah, it does. But I mean, it's not like even interesting like Sucker Punch, which I love because I'm such a guy for Zack Snyder. That's not a great movie, but visually that's interesting. See, The Matrix doesn't work that way. Oh my good gracious! It was trying to be philosophic, and it was trying to do all this, that, and the other. It's like, and it's yeah. I don't know how, I still don't know how I feel about it. I think by telling you what I told you, I finally have come to my agreement that, yeah, I probably shouldn't have watched it. Yeah. I feel kind of sad about it in a weird way. I already feel weird about number 3 anyhow, because number 3 is so strange to begin with to me, because it just becomes, what is the last one? The Return of the King? It's like, it's like, oh my good gracious. Because all of a sudden, all these trilogies had to have this final epic war. And it's like, oh my good gracious. So wasn't it just Return of the King again for you at the end of Matrix? Just different monsters?
That's an interesting... yeah, when you say it that way, because you have Frodo trying to destroy the ring, and that's like Neo fighting Agent Smith. And then you have Zion, the battle with Wow, Billy. I never even thought of those two in that regard, but they're so similar. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's weird, isn't it? It's like, it's really weird how that happens. But yeah, it's when you look at certain things, I'm like, oh, heck of a digression, sir.
Oh, yeah. Kalam thought, what in Hood's name are these two talking about? Or rather, not talking about?
He's talking about us.
The captain said, a man gets so he can't even trust the beat of his own heart. Mind you, I can't count past 14 in any case. So's I could not help but lose track, and tracking's what we're talking about here, if I'm not mistaken. The treasurer said, Captain, you caused me great distress with your words. Elan said, you're not alone in that. The captain's face turned red as he glared at the treasurer. He asked, do I offend you, sir? The treasurer said, offend? No, baffle. I dare say I am led to conclude that you have lost the grip on your own mind. Thus, to ensure the safety of this ship, I have no choice. The captain rose and shouted, no choice? Words and grips like sand. What slips through your fingers can knock you over. I'll show you safety, you sweaty stream of lard. What's funny about that is I just called Deathpara a piece of lard last week.
Yes, you did. Well said.
That's hilarious.
That's nice. Very nice. And well said. You are apparently like-minded of the captain.
Yeah, I had not read this chapter.
You're becoming fluent in molasses and swearing. Nice.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there we go.
Or insulting, I guess. Same thing.
Kalam leaned back clear of the table as the captain went to the cabin door and began struggling with his cloak. Sulkyland had not moved from his seat, watching with a tight smile. A moment later, the captain flung open the cabin door and barreled into the passageway, bellowing a call for his first mate. His boots thumped like fists hammering a wall as he made for the galley. The cabin's door creaked back and forth on its hinges. The treasurer's mouth opened and closed, then opened again. He whispered, what choice? Elan drawled. Not yours to make. The treasurer swung to him and said, Not mine? And who else, if not the man entrusted with the Aaron treasury? Elan said, Is that what it's officially called then? How about Pormqual's ill-gotten loot? Those seals on the crates below have the high fist sigil on them, not the imperial scepter. Kalam thought, And so you have been in the hold, Sulkylan. Interesting. The treasurer hissed, To lay hands upon those crates is punishable by death. Elan sneered his disgust. He said, You're doing the dirty work of a thief, so what does that make you? The treasurer went white. In silence, he rose and, using his hands to steady himself as the ship pitched, then left the room. Elan glanced at Kalam and said, So, my reluctant friend, what do you make of this captain of ours? Kalam rumbled, Nothing I'd share with you. Elan said, Your constant efforts to avoid me have been childish. Kalam said, Well, it's either that or I kill you outright. Elan said, How unpleasant of you, Kalam, after all the efforts I've made on your behalf. Kalam rose, then said, Rest assured, I'll repay the debt, sulky Elan. Elan said, You could do that with your company alone. Intelligent conversation aboard this ship is proving hard to come by. Kalam headed for the cabin door and said, I'll spare a thought in sympathy. Elan said, You wrong me, Kalam. I am not your enemy. Indeed, we too are much alike. Kalam paused in the portalway. He said, If you're seeking friendship between us, sulky Elan, you've just taken a long step backward with that observation. He stepped out into the passage and made his way forward. He emerged on the main deck and found himself in the midst of furious activity. Gear was being battened down, sailors checking the rigging and others taking in sail. It was past the 10th bell and the night sky was solid clouds, not a star showing. The captain reeled to Kalam's side. He said, What did I tell you? Lost its polish! A squall was coming. Kalam could feel it in the wind that now swirled as if the air had nowhere to go. So this is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The captain mentioned that the mirror had lost its polish earlier, and
yes.
The only thing that I can think of here is it has something to do with the humidity in the air, maybe.
I think you're right. Maybe he feels this storm's coming. Well spotted by you, sir.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, at first, before I got to this part where he said that, I was like, what does that even mean? Is this another one of his ramblings?
Cryptic things.
Cryptic declarations.
And my thing is, how does Erikson have numerous characters that he can write like this? That just first off, I mean, that's not easy to write because most people don't even try. He just does such different things. Everything he just does everything's so different. That's what's so magnificent about it. It's just different. And his ability to bring these people to life, and especially these confused sounding people that sound like they're desperately are trying to make sense or think they're making sense. And I'm still not convinced. I think this guy's making sense. I'm just not sure how. I'm not sure what's going on. If he,
you don't have the decoder ring to understand
not.
What he's saying. Yeah.
No, I lost the Justice League. My super best friend's decoder ring.
The captain said, From the south, and clapped Kalam on the shoulder. He continued, We'll turn on the hunters, aye, won't we just? Storm jibbed and Marines crowding the forecastle. We'll ram them down their throats. Hood take these smirking stalkers. We'll see how long their grins last with a short sword jabbing them in the face, eh? Look to your daggers, man. It'll be a night for close work. Aye, won't it just? His face spasmed suddenly, and he jerked away, began screaming at his crew. Kalam stared after him and thought, Perhaps I'm not being paranoid after all. The man's afflicted with something. And he sure is acting erratic, isn't he?
Yes, most assuredly. Yes.
But when he's cogent, like that last paragraph there was great. Yes. It's when he starts getting into the alcohol and weaving and bobbing in his chambers like they were earlier that it's really difficult to follow what's going on.
But I love this comment from him here. It's like he's talking about stabbing them in their face. That's the 21st century equivalent of talking about shooting someone in their face. Yes.
We're
going to shoot them in your face. It's like, it's just like that come. So, yeah, he's pretty hardcore. I'm like, wow.
Mm-hmm. The deck heeled as they came hard about. The storm's wind arrived at the same time, lifting Ragstopper to run before it on stiff, shortened sails. Lanterns shuddered and the crew settling into their tasks, they plunged on northward. Kalam thought, a sea battle in a raging storm, and the captain expects the Marines to board the enemy craft, to stand on a pitching, wave-whipped deck and take the fight to the pirates. This is beyond audacious. And this is another scene that would be fun to see visualized.
Yes. You know, there's so many great nautical movies. I tire of them sometimes. My father has always adored swashbuckling, and he's a huge master and commander guy too. Um,
Great movie.
He's read all those books, man. But there's a lot of visual ones that we have to draw upon. You know, this is the great thing about anything in the sea. You can almost always imagine this because, man, that's almost a scary thought in and of itself. Being stuck, you have to fight anything. Being inside a tiny thing on surface of a giant desert of water.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and you have got to survive the encounter. Things about being desperate. Things are always desperate on the sea, in my opinion. When you get to fighting,
Yeah, those crazy seas like in the north and then the Indian Ocean, where even those massive ship containers, they're going up and down like 60-foot swells. That's the kind of stuff that really captures the imagination.
Yeah,
for me. How horrifying that would be, because I've been in some minor stuff compared to that 15 foot. That's depending on the size of the vessel, that can be pretty wild too.
Sure.
Because I was on a pretty short barge one time and they had 15 foot, and it was pitching well enough to where at some points I was only looking at water and some points I was only looking at sky, and I tried to get it on video, but it doesn't translate.
Nice.
No, not at all. Yeah, so there was a time, I think I've told the story before, where a squall did come in. It was like this, a storm came in real quick and super windy. That's kind of what I'm picturing here with the thunder and the lightning, and the winds pick up real quick. Yeah, really hard rain all of a sudden.
Yeah, that would be kind of, you're facing two enemies, the weather and an enemy.
Yeah, when we get to the engagement, I'll say something about that.
Okay.
The treasurer's bodyguards appeared from behind, flanking Kalam. Kalam grimaced. They had been incapacitated by seasickness since the first day, and neither looked in any condition to be able to do anything except puke his guts out on Kalam's boots. Yet they stood their ground, hands on weapons. One of them growled, "Master wishes to speak with you." Kalam growled, "Too bad." The man said, "Now." Kalam asked, "Or what, you kill me with your breath? Master can speak with corpses, can he?" The man said, "Master commands." Kalam interrupted. "If he wants to talk, he can come here. Otherwise, like I said, too bad." The two men retreated. Kalam moved forward past the mainmast to where the two squads of Marines crouched low before the forecastle. Kalam had weathered more than his share of squalls while serving in the Imperial campaigns. This storm was, thus far at least, comparatively tame. The two Marines were grim-faced, as would be expected before an engagement, but otherwise laconic as they readied their assault crossbows in the blunted glow of a shuttered lantern. Kalam's gaze searched among them until he found the lieutenant. He said, "A word with you, sir." She snapped, "Not now," and donned her helmet, locking the cheek guards in place. She said, "Get below." Kalam said, "He means to ram." She interrupted, "I know what he means to do. And when the crunch comes, the last thing we need is some hood-damned civilian to watch out for." Kalam asked, "Do you take the captain's orders or the treasurer's?" She looked up at that, eyes narrowing. The other Marines paused. She said, "Get below." Kalam sighed, "I'm an Imperial veteran, Lieutenant." She asked, "Which army?" Kalam hesitated, then said, "Second, 9th Squad, bridge burners." As one, the Marines sat back. All eyes were on him now. The lieutenant scowled and said, "Now how likely is that?" Another Marine, a grizzled veteran, barked out, "Your sergeant? Let's hear some names, stranger." Kalam said, "Whiskey Jack." Other sergeants? Not many left. Ansi Tormin. Tormin? Who the heck is that? I've never even heard that name before.
For him bringing him up, I'm assuming he's a pretty bad fella to be a sergeant for the bridge burners.
Yeah.
I would like to meet him, if he's alive.
The veteran asked, "You're Corporal Kalam, ain't you?" Kalam studied the man. He asked, "Who are you?" He said, "Nobody, sir, and been that way a long time." He turned to his lieutenant and nodded. "That's interesting. I wonder who this guy is."
Yeah. When I read this, are you like me? Are you wondering if he was old guard or something like that?
Yes. Who are you that just disappeared, but you're still in the military?
Dude.
The lieutenant asked, "Can we count on you?" Kalam said, "Not up front, but I'll be close by." She looked around and said, "The treasurer's got an imperial writ. We're shackled to it, Corporal." Kalam said, "I don't think the treasurer trusts you. Should it come down to making a choice between him and the captain?" She made a sour face and said, "This attack's madness, but it's sharp madness." Kalam nodded, waited. She said, I guess the treasurer's got reason. Kalam said, if it comes to it, leave the bodyguards to me. She asked, both of them? Kalam said, aye.
Nice.
The veteran spoke up. If we make the shark sick in the gut with the treasurer, we'll hang for it. Kalam said, just be somewhere else when it happens, all of you. The knife's in the back.
Nice. Got the plans in the motion.
The lieutenant grinned and said, I think we can manage that. Kalam addressed all the Marines. Now, I'm just another one of those grease-faced civilians, right? A voice called out, we never figured this outlawing stuff was for real. Not Dujek One Arm. No way. Kalam thought, Hood, for all I know, you may be right, soldier. But he hid his uncertainty with a half salute before making his way back down the length of the deck. Ragstopper reminded Kalam of a bear crashing through thickets as it barreled along, lumbering, broad and solid in the spraying high seas. The captain was on the stern castle, braced against the hand manning the tiller. His first mate stood near him, one arm looped around the stern mast. Both were glaring ahead into the darkness, awaiting the first sighting of their quarry. Kalam opened his mouth to speak, but a shout from the first mate stopped him. A point to port, Captain, beating 3/4. Hood's breath, we're right on top of her. The pirate vessel was less than 100 paces away, on a tack that would cut directly in front of Ragstopper. The positioning was breathtakingly perfect. Through the howl of the storm, the captain bellowed, all hands prepare to ram! The first mate bolted ahead, shouting orders to his crew. Kalam saw the Marines crouch low to the deck, readying for the impact. Faint screams reached Kalam from the pirate vessel. The pirate ship's prow pitched away as the crew made a last doomed effort to avoid the collision. The gods were grinning down on the scene, but it was the rictus of a death's head. A swell lifted Ragstopper high just before the contact, then dropped the trader down onto the raider's low gunnels, just behind the peaked prow. Wood exploded, splintered, and shuddered. Kalam was thrown forward, losing his grip on the starboard stern rail. He pitched from the stern castle, struck the main deck with a tucked shoulder, rolling as the momentum carried him forward. And that's quite acrobatic for a man his size.
Yes, indeed he is. And if I'm not mistaken, it's like, yeah, he is quite acrobatic. I think we'll become more familiar later with some of his exploits. I'm hoping to, because just think of the stuff from Guards of the Moon, hanging from the roof and all that stuff on the roof is pretty acrobatic, man. And strong.
Strong. Yes, yes. Masts snapped somewhere above him. Sails whipped in the rain-tracked air. Ragstopper settled, grinding, popping, canting heavily. Sailors were screaming, shrieking on all sides, but Kalam could see little of what was happening from where he lay. Groaning, he worked his way upright. The last of the Marines were plunging over the forward port rail, down and out of sight, presumably onto the raider's deck. He thought, or what's left of it. The clash of weapons rose muted beneath the wailing wind. Kalam turned, but the captain was nowhere in sight. Nor was there anyone at the tiller. The wreckage of a snapped spar cluttered the stern castle. Kalam made his way aft. The locked ships had no steerage. Waves were pummeling Ragstopper's starboard hull, flinging sheets of foaming water across the main deck. A body lay in that wash, face down and leaking blood. Reaching the man, Kalam turned him over. It was the first mate, his forehead sharply caved in. The blood was coming from nose and throat. The water had washed clean the killing blow, and Kalam stared at the damage for a half-dozen heartbeats before rising and stepping over the corpse. He thought, not so seasick after all. That would be in reference to the bodyguards of the treasure.
Yes.
He climbed to the stern castle and began searching through the wreckage. The man at the tiller had lost most of his head, only a few twisted ropes of flesh and skin holding what was left of it to the body. He examined the slash across the neck. He thought, two-handed, a step behind and to the left. The spar crushed what was already dead. He found the captain and one of the treasurer's bodyguards beneath the sail. Splinters of the wood jutted from the bodyguard's chest and throat. He still gripped his two-handed tulwar. The captain's hands were shredded ribbons closed on the blade end, blood pulsing from them to stain the swirling wash of seawater. A massive discoloring reached the span of the man's brow, but his breathing was steady. Kalam pried the captain's fingers from the tulwar blade and dragged him free of the wreckage. So I take it the captain is holding the blade even when he's knocked out?
Yeah, well, I could imagine that. And by the way, ouch. But
Yeah.
I interpret this as he caught the blow, but the only way he could catch the blow was in his hands. And so I imagine it coming like towards your face and you go reaching up and grabbing a hold of it. It's dug into his hands. So it would make his hands would just stay clenched. I think they would stay clenched around it. Is a tulwar double-bladed?
This one's a two-handed, but they also have single-handed ones.
Is a tulwar a sword type one?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess where one side of the blade is smooth and both sides are sharp. If
No,
both
no,
sides were
only one side is sharp, I think.
okay.
Because okay, so a tulwar, two-handed tulwar is like the sword the guy had in Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, that he shot. That's a
Okay.
two-handed tulwar.
So the top part, his fingers would be fine on the other side, but boy, the ones holding
The
his, I'm
meat that
imagining.
caught it.
Ooh, yeah, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to let go. I don't think you could let go.
Okay.
But it's embedded in his flesh, probably down to his wrist. Probably.
That makes sense. Ragstopper loosed his grip on the raider at the same time, dropping down into a trough, then pitching wildly as waves battered his hull. Figures appeared on the stern castle, one taking the tiller, another crouching down beside Kalam. Glancing up, Kalam found himself looking into Sulk Elan's dripping face. Elan asked, "He lives?" Kalam said, "Aye." Elan said, "We're not out of trouble yet." Kalam shouted, "To hood with that! We've got to get this man below." Elan said, "We've sprung leaks up front. Most of the Marines are at the pumps." They lifted the captain between them. Kalam asked, "And the raider?" Elan said, "The one we hit? In pieces." Kalam said, "In other words, not what the treasurer planned." Elan stopped, his eyes sharpening. He said, "Seems we've slunk on the same path, you and I." Kalam asked, "Where is the bastard?" Elan said, "He's taken command, for now. Seems every officer's suffered an unlikely accident anyway. We've got the other vessel closing on us, so, like I said, the fun's anything but over." Kalam grunted, "One thing at a time." They made their way down through the galley and into the passage. Water swirled ankle deep, and Kalam could feel just how sluggish Ragstopper had become. That was such a ballsy move by the captain to ram the enemy vessel. Given how heavy his vessel is, he had quite a bit of faith with his own ship, I think.
Yeah, I'm assuming he does. And I really like this guy. And maybe it's the lucky shirt that gives him such confidence, you know?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he has that lucky shirt.
He has his lucky shirt. Maybe it's anointed by some ascendant or something. Heck, maybe he's an ascendant for all we know.
Or on the verge of ascendancy.
Maybe so, dude. They just kind of feel these folks just strolling around, you know? It's like, wow.
You never know.
Yeah, could never tell.
As they reached the captain's door, Elan asked, "You pulled rank on the Marines, didn't you?" Kalam said, "I don't outrank the lieutenant." Elan said, "Even so, call it the power of notoriety, then. She's already had harsh words with the treasurer." Kalam asked, "Why?" Elan said, "The bastard wants us to surrender, of course." They carried the captain to his cot. Kalam asked, "A transfer of cargo in this blow?" Elan said, "No, they'll wait it out." Kalam said, "Then we got time enough. Here, help me get him undressed." Elan noted, "His hands are bad." Kalam said, "Aye, we'll bandage them up next." Elan stared down at the captain as Kalam pulled the blanket up around the man. He asked, "Think he'll live?" Kalam said nothing, pulling the captain's hands free to study the lacerations. He said, "He stopped a blow with these." Elan said, "Now that's not an easy thing to do. Listen, Kalam, how are we in this?" Kalam hesitated, then said, "How did you put it? Slunk the same path? It seems neither one of us wants to end up in a shark's belly." Elan said, "Meaning we'd better work together." Kalam said, "Aye, for now. Just don't expect me to kiss you good night, Elan." Elan asked, "Not even once?"
Nicely stated, Salk.
Mm-hmm. Kalam said, "You'd better get up top, find out what's going on. I can finish here." Elan said, "Don't tarry, Kalam. Blood could spill fast." Kalam said, "Aye." Alone with the captain, Kalam found a sewing kit and began stitching flesh. He finished one hand and had started on the other when the captain groaned. Kalam muttered, "Hood's breath. Just another 10 minutes, that's all I needed." The captain whispered, "Double cross." Kalam said, "We'd guessed as much. Now shut up and let me work." The captain said, "Poor Pormqual's treasurer is crooked." Kalam said, "Like attracts like, as the saying goes." The captain said, "You and that Ponzi skulker, two of a kind." Kalam said, "Thanks, so I keep hearing." The captain said, "Up to you two now." Kalam added, "And the lieutenant." The captain managed a smile, his eyes still closed, as he said, "Good."
Light endeavorous. I'm sorry.
Wow. I like how the captain is putting faith in Kalam and Sulk Elan to save this ship. It's a potentially risky thing on his part, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
Yes. Well, I feel like he recognized Kalam, like, and I'll bring up that meeting again in the bowl shape. He recognized him, I believe. I'm sure he knows who Kalan is. Or at least I don't know why I have that feeling. And that alone carries a lot of weight especially with the Malazan folks. In my opinion, is if they've had any affiliation with the Marines or anything like that, and like the Marines recognize, you're Kalam, aren't you? It's like I'm pretty sure that someone like that might know who he is and would be like, "Whoa!"
Isn't that crazy? In an empire of this size, with as many people as are there, they have that reputation that
Yes,
people know them. Isn't that
yes,
crazy?
yes. It's mind blowing, and so they are the cream of the cream of the cream of the crop. They are there's take all of ours together, the Spetsnaz, the SEALs, the whatever, and you put all of them together from all the world and blend them into one, because that's what the emperor did, apparently, because he always this is the one thing we've both appreciated about the man, is that he based things on merit. So the elite seem to band together and teach each other things, and they're a smattering of all of them rolled into one. And that's kind of like the bridge burners to me, are kind of like a smattering of all kinds of elite whatevers. They're just elite. And whatever they set their mind to, they are elite, sir.
Yeah, and the thing that I like the most about it is they adopt the tactics of those that they've conquered if they're better than what they have.
Yes, absolutely. Well, look at the Wiccans. How they not only did we adapt, he didn't adapt them. He just showed them and put them to great use for the empire. So yeah, it's just such a fantastic. He was such a crazy good leader. I think he must have been a good emperor. He may have been a hard man, I'm assuming, and crazy. But I mean, you got to be kind of crazy to want to be a leader, anyhow, in my mind.
Who do you see playing the emperor?
Dude, he's dead. But I see a couple of folks you could have, like George C. Scott in Patton days as the emperor, not Shadow Throne necessarily, but as the emperor, old. I'm trying to think who would be good for Shadow Throne. Christopher Walken.
No, he's black though. He's Dalhanese.
That's right. That's right. Oh, yeah. That's right. So it's got to be
Samuel L. Jackson.
No, that's more like Pust. If you made Samuel L. crazy, like crazy.
He's really got the voice for it. He's got the laugh. I think he could do the crazy laugh.
Okay. Good gracious, you're right, sir. You're right. Now, but Samuel L. is I'm sorry, it's like, I just can't populate an entire film with Samuel L. Jackson as every brother I want in the role. I would like that.
Well, okay, so who else would you put him as?
I don't know. I'm just saying, because Samuel L's like the favorite. It's like, because he's the only one you're right. He's the only one that's kind of mean. And I think of mean. Got that mean squirrely side.
I think he's got the range. Yeah, I think he's got the range to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, so many people like that, like the late Michael Clark Duncan. He was always seen as like the gentle giant and the sweet fella. And he was. I mean, almost always. And certainly
he was so good in Talladega Nights.
I haven't seen that. So
oh man. So
is he really funny in that? Okay.
Yeah. Because he's playing like a serious role, but I mean the hijinks that happen when he's I think that's the last movie that I remember him in.
Okay. I was watching the last show that he was doing was a show called The Finder.
Okay.
And it was a really fun show. It was in the Bones universe. Apparently he had shown up on Bones once, but he was like a Desert Storm or one of the Middle East conflict vets who had suffered some brain damage and would get obsessed with finding things. If he didn't find it, the idea was that he might shut down. But he finds like a bolt from an airplane crash in the Florida Everglades. He's that guy. And Michael Clark Duncan owned the bar that he lived at and kind of was the home base out of. And when he died like midway through that show, roughly.
That's too bad, man.
And it killed, he killed a good show because his death, apparently just really rocked him. And it was a very entertaining show, pretty clean, really fun. You could, watch it with your kids and have a good time, because the guy that played him, I forget what his name was, it's Jeff Stoltz or something, I think, who always plays military type folks anyhow. And I like him. He's got that Oliphant kind of vibe to me in a way. And, so I've always liked those fellas. I gravitate toward them fellas. So it was a really good show for what it was.
I think I just realized who I could see playing Kalam.
Okay.
Terry Crews. Do you know who Terry Crews is?
I think I do. Hold on. Yeah. I'm going to have to go. How do you spell his last name? Crew?
Yeah.
Yep, there we go. Terry Crews. Dude. Yeah, I
He's got
love
the
that guy,
size.
dude.
He's got the build. Yeah,
Yeah.
he could do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, dude. What about the guy that plays Luke Cage, man?
Oh, dude, yeah, actually, that's even better.
Dude,
That's
he's
even,
awesome, isn't he?
I think, yeah. Terry's too friendly looking. He's
Yes.
always smiling.
Yeah, he's
The
always got
Luke
that big
Cage guy,
smile.
he's got the darker, more, I guess, serious personality like
Yeah.
that you would need from Kalam. Yeah,
Maybe,
Terry Crews just those teeth are always showing. Like no matter what, he's smiling. So
maybe Crews could be, but he had to be slighter build to be quick.
No. For Quick Ben, there's a guy. Have you seen Layer Cake?
Yeah.
The black friend that Daniel Craig had in that. That's the guy I see playing Quick Ben. He's a little bit old for it now, I think. And then, did you rewatch Dune yet?
No, I need to.
Okay. Do you remember the guy that plays Jamis, the guy that he gets in a knife fight with?
No, who plays him? I remember Jamis for sure, but I can't.
Did you ever watch Wrath of Man?
No.
Okay.
I need to. Good gracious, you told me to watch that movie too.
He's in both those movies. I would want to cast him as something, one of the tribal members, either from Seven Cities or from the Dalhousie group or something,
Right.
you know, because he just has such a unique look about him that I think he'd be either way. We need to probably finish this out. Kalam sat back, reached for the bandages, and said, "Almost done." The captain said, "Me too." Kalam said, "The bodyguard's dead. You'll be pleased to know." The captain said, "I killed himself, the idiot. I ducked the first swing. The blade bit through the wrong ropes. Feel that, Kalam? We're rolling."
He said it. Did he give him his name before, or did he just know him? He just spilled the beans. Feel it, Kalam? That's the captain.
Oh, wow. Feel that, Kalam? We're rolling even. Someone up top knows what we're doing. Thank the gods. Still way too heavy, but she'll hold together. That's a good observation, man. I didn't notice that. So,
and he's very cogent. I mean, super cogent in this one right here.
Well, he must have known. Did he ever refer to him as Kalam before? Had to have.
I don't recall. I don't think he did.
Okay.
When he introduced and they were playing, you know, like I said, I felt like I thought Kalam may have known who he is. He doesn't appear to recognize the captain, but I think the captain is the kind of person that knows enough folks that he's probably aware of and he's obviously aware of who he is. But
right.
So I don't know if this could have come up while they're here, but Kalam has not been going by his name because has he? I guess he has been going by his name. So maybe the captain probably did know it then. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look and see if he ever addressed him by name before. But either way, if he hasn't, then he certainly has now.
Yes, he has.
Kalam quipped, "Got enough rags for that then?" The captain said, "That we have." Kalam rose and said, "All right, I'm done. Get some sleep, Captain. We need you hale and fast." The captain said, "Not likely. That other bodyguard will finish it first chance he gets. The treasure needs me out of the way." Kalam said, "We'll take care of it, Captain." The captain asked, "Just like that?" Kalam said, "Just like that." Closing the door behind him, Kalam paused, loosened the long knife in its scabbard. He thought, "Just like that, Captain." Get me excited.
Yep. Oh, really?
But
excited.
We're going to stop there and we're going to finish it next week.
Yes.
That's actually a really good stopping point. That right there is a good stopping point. All right, for standout moments, Kalam's initial interaction with the Marines. I want to know more about this nameless veteran.
Absolutely. And which Marine? Tormund or the one wanting not to be noticed?
Well, okay, so both. Tormund, I don't know who that is.
Yes.
The first time I remember hearing that name, I guess I just kind of glossed over it before.
Yes.
But then also the one on this vessel that is questioning Kalam.
Yeah.
Has to be somebody of note.
Yes, I agree. Or he's just been around, or how some folks are kind of grunts that are just around a bunch and and they're just hardcore grunts forever, and they've never risen to much, but they don't stand out either. Maybe that's why. I don't know if he'll survive or not. We'll see.
The ramming of the pirate vessel, the way it landed on the deck, that could not have played out better for them.
Dude, I'm assuming, I'm assuming this shattered that boat. It's wow.
Yeah.
It's magnificent.
And then the murder mystery-esque way that the scene plays out with all the officers getting killed by the treasurer's guards. That was interesting.
That is fun. That's really fun. It's so much goes on. This must be on screen. It's just so visual. So this entire chapter is just really exciting.
It is. Yes. It starts out a little bit slow with the scene in the captain's cabin, but then it picks up pretty quick once the captain storms off, and then from there it goes.
Yeah. Well, once they realize they're actually been like, whoa, wait a minute, we've lost a bunch of time.
And then the captain's going to take his destiny into his own hands, turn the ship about, and
right on.
And then finally, the captain relying on Kalam and Sulky Land to set things straight on the ship. I like seeing that.
Oh, yeah, that's really cool because I really like the captain, and I like that he knows that these men, he obviously observes these are capable men, and that he can, they're at least in this scenario, they lean more on his side of the things than this piece of crap treasure.
The piece of lard.
Piece of lard, sorry.
Yes.
The piece of lard treasure, yes.
Yeah. And I'm going to add that to my list of standout moments. The fact that I called Pormqual a piece of lard last week, and then Mr. Erickson called the treasure a piece of lard this week.
Yes.
I think that's awesome.
It is. Fantastic.
Yeah. Great job tonight, Billy.
Hey, great job, brother. Good episode.
You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
I just love this chapter, man. It's just, especially as we get into the next part next week. This is this the first serious action coming up that we'll see Kalam really get into? This is a very Kalam-centric chapter. That's part of what I love about it. I know your love of Kalam too.
Yes, but you mean in this book?
Well, in this book, he's been a lot more front and center than in the past book. But in particular, coming up next week, in particular, it's like a super huge action. Like he's like a superhero.
Well, remember when he met Minala and Keneb, he dispatched dozens of men in that chapter.
Yes.
So it's not the first time we've seen him go
That's true.
crazy in this book.
But there's just something about it here. I don't know what it is.
It's more of a superhero type fight.
It's got a visual. It's got way more visual to me. It's just, it really stands out. So I just love it.
The set piece is definitely more cinematic here with the storm on the ship. And that really, I think, is the differentiator.
Yeah, I think that is nicely spotted, sir. But great job. Good episode, man.
Yeah, thanks. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See y'all next week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.